What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Match Dads podcast. My name is Rugley, joined here today by Pinty Het and
Hi.
Joe Ahrens.
It's
What's up,
Joe.
dudes?
How's it going?
Sat next to
Good.
Joe on Friday. We,
Yeah,
we got to hang out.
that was a
I got the
good
bye
FNM.
round
We
one.
had a really good turnout for FNM on Friday,
Yeah.
didn't we?
Yeah, I had the bye, got to sit next to Joe, and I don't know if I backseated you as much as I just enjoyed watching you.
No, I don't think you really backseated, but
You don't want to listen to me anyway.
well, I mean, I think most of what you were asking was what crazy cards were in my hand.
Yeah, I like watching people play, and I think Lawnlander is one of the formats that I think is really entertaining to watch. And it
Yeah,
was
there's a
good
ton
match.
of super duper interesting cards. I mean, especially in this deck that we're going to talk about today. But like in general, Canadian Highlander gets to play a whole bunch of cards that other formats don't. And yeah, I think that's a really, really sweet feature of the formats. If you want to learn more about Canadian Highlander, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that we get to annoy you every time we upload a Canadian Highlander video. So we are here today with Joe to talk about one of the decks that earned him his qualification for the Lawnlander Championship last year, and that is Jund Blitz. Yeah, you heard that right. This is not a super duper common archetype that you see all of the time. Very, very sweet nonetheless. It plays a lot of really cool cards. But Joe, could you please describe for me in your own words, what is Jund Blitz?
Well, the idea behind the deck is to take literally every good creature or somewhat decent creature with haste or more power than mana you put into it and slap it into a deck together and just try to run people over. And it attacks, I would argue it attacks people in a different way than like a red deck wins kind of deck. Um, you kind of you kind of put your stuff into all your stuff into one basket, glass can, and you're going all in on the early turns with little inevitability if they turn the corner. But most of the time, that's good enough. So
Right
that's
on.
a general,
I
less than 100 words how
Yeah.
to write up on this deck.
The curve is so much lower. Like we were talking before here, so Gruul monsters is sort of like a known quantity in the format,
yeah.
and this deck is so much lower on the curve. I'm looking at it right now, and where Gruul monsters sort of like doesn't have much going on at 2 and like bumps back up at 3 and 4, your deck has a ton of its threats on 1 and 2, just actual game winners on their own at 1 and 2.
Yeah.
It seems to also be able to, because of that, truncate some of its investment in lands. Like you don't
Yes.
need a high density in lands. You're also like what's your current point spread?
Just box. John Moxon. That's it.
So I'm gonna pull up
Just hard
deck
9 points.
here.
Just 9 points. That's right. It
So that
Price
the
of
viewers
Progress
at
used to
home
be
can
number 10.
See it. There we go. Okay, everybody at home can see the deck now. As Joe said, point spread there. Mox. And you said Price of Progress
Yes.
was your 10th point before.
It
That's
was
no
the
longer
10th.
pointed.
Yes, it fell off. I did not really find anything I liked for the 1 point.
Sure.
You could make an argument for Jite, but I feel like it's not great in this archetype. You don't want to be spending your mana playing this equipment that's not doing anything.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
that's a 4 mana investment,
Yeah.
which is higher than most of your threats.
Yes, Skull Clamp is in purely because it is less mana for value. That's it.
Yeah. There is a card that's probably going to be a point in the very near future. So probably don't need to adjust things a whole lot for the foreseeable future.
Want to tell me what that card might be?
I don't know if you've heard of Minsk and Boo,
Yeah.
the Planeswalker.
You can see it on the screen right there.
Yeah.
Boo. Several members of the council have brought up the fact that how powerful this planeswalker is, and it truly is an extremely powerful card. And if it did receive a point, most assuredly deserved that. So maybe keeping it at 9 points is a good idea for now.
Yeah, just hedge that bet. Hedge that bet.
Well, What's really funny is when I qualified with this deck last year, I actually wasn't even playing Minsc and Boo. I was playing a different 4 mana Planeswalker in its place.
Oh,
What,
really?
yeah,
what were you on?
people. I'd have to look it up real quick, but people slapped sense into me and told me to just play Minsc and Boo, so I finally listened. But it was the red Planeswalker from AFR. I'd have to find it real quick.
Oh, it starts with a D.
Zario.
Yeah,
Zario.
Zario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah,
planeswalker,
because
actually.
you play it, you pump, you give all your stuff haste plus one plus
Yep.
O. It just does work. You could at minimum make a 1/1.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
token generation is good.
Yeah, but
I
I mean,
like a token generator.
I don't hate that card at all.
oh yeah,
No.
it was good when I played it, but Minsc and Boo is just too good not to play.
What if instead of 1/1 you produce a 4/4 every turn?
Yeah.
That you can then
Or,
throw to
I
draw
mean,
cards.
with this deck, you can put 3 counters on almost every single creature.
Oh yeah.
So
Or like just throw something to end the game. Like
Yep.
throw something big, end the game, you're good to go.
yep, exactly.
In addition to Minsc and Boo, you've got a Renin 6 who also needs no introduction. Let's get
Yes.
into the meat of this deck, which is the creatures. You've got a total of 47 of them.
Yes.
That is a ton.
That's so many.
Almost half the deck. That's
Yeah,
right.
we're going to start off with Blood-Soaked Champion, a staple from Khans of Tarkir. Standard. So this is one of these, I don't know what you call these 1 mana black creatures that can keep coming back over and over and over again. This one comes back. All you have to do is to attack with a creature. Of course, the card is worded in a way that explains to you how you're supposed to play
Yeah.
it. Say 1 mana 2/1 that cannot block. You know why it can't block? Because you're supposed to attack with it.
Yeah. How else would you play the game if not attacking with your aggressive with your 2/1 for 1?
Moving right along, we've got a Bomat Courier, the little construct that could.
Beep beep.
So something that I'm always interested in is in these really low to the ground like aggro decks, like this deck, like Sean's Goblins deck, for example. You tend to run out of cards really quickly. So something I'm always interested in is how you recoup that card advantage. And Bomat Courier does a really good job of that. Every time it attacks, you get to bottle a card from the top of your deck, and then you can sacrifice it and put all of those cards into your hand. So if everything's going according to plan, and nobody wants to deal with a little 1/1, right? You could draw several cards when you decide to cash in.
Yeah, they're sort of priced into dealing with it, which is for them super annoying because it's just a 1/1.
Right.
And they have to spend a card on it, otherwise eventually you get to refill your whole grip.
Yeah.
And like in that way, it's almost like a spell skite, right? Like protecting your other threats.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
kind
yeah,
of drawing
it's
removal at it.
it's certainly a lightning rod, and
Yeah.
you could get those mind games going on where do I kill the 1/1 or do I kill the 3/3? If I kill the 1/1, I still take 3, but also my opponent's going to draw several cards. What do I do?
Yeah. I like it as a card in the deck. I think it if anything, it's just a 1 with haste, right? Easy to cast.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
it's
like
still
the-
a great
that's like the
turn 1
floor.
play.
That's the floor.
The floor is a 1/1 with haste. Like that seems pretty good.
Moving right along, one of my favorite 1 mana creatures is Death Shadow.
Oh my god. Don't get Blake started.
I do love this card. I haven't looked a ton at sources of damage for yourself, but I do see over here that you have a Berserk, which is something that's super fun with Death Shadow.
Yes.
So are there ways? I see a Thoughtseize. Are there other ways? Other than
I mean,
shock lands and
the biggest way is just fetch shock yourself, kind of like
it's not hard to deal yourself.
The
10
modern
damage,
and legacy
so.
way to hurt yourself is just hurt yourself
Yeah.
with your mana.
Sure.
If it's in the opener, you can just plan around it and just hurt yourself.
Sure.
If you're also playing the game of Magic the Gathering,
You're gonna
your
lose
opponent
life.
is probably going to be attacking you and you'll be losing life just by virtue of playing the game.
Yeah, Death Shadow.
You're also not blocking, so
Death Shadow makes racing situations and aggro matchups very interesting because it creates this tension where, if they've attacked you to the point where Death Shadow is live, first of all, it can be kind of hard for them to kill because it gets out of control really quickly. And then they also have to think about, if I chip away at you a little bit at a time, that thing's just going to keep getting bigger, which makes it, first of all, better defense, but also I could just die.
yeah. If you put a Rancor in one of these things, you can kill your opponent. Like any kind of trample, any kind of evasion at all, and a Death Shadow can just that there goes the game. And it's worth a spell slot.
You've got a Deathrite Shaman. This is a new one from Murders of Karlov Manor. It is a Frantic
Oh my
Scapegoat.
God.
So this is it. This is another 1/1 for 1 with haste. And when it enters the battlefield, suspect it. So that gives it menace and it can't block. Again, card telling you how to play it. But then, as if that wasn't enough, whenever one or more other creatures enter the battlefield under your control, if Frantic Scapegoat is suspected, you may suspect one of those other creatures. If you do, Frantic Scapegoat is no longer suspected. So
That's so good.
Subsequent creatures after this thing is on the battlefield it can give them menace essentially.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
that's the main reason for playing this card.
Yeah,
that's the main,
great
not
donation.
the Jesper Ising art of like a crazed goat.
I mean, the art is great too. Don't get me wrong.
A Goblin Guide, of course, a Hex Drinker, Curd Ape. This is a
Ooh,
throwback.
classic. Ooh.
Curd Ape, I do love to see that.
Yeah, baby.
Monastery Swift Sphere, of course. Standard staple Pelt Collector. This is that creature that grows every time you play a creature that's bigger than it, and then it gets trample once it has 3 or more counters.
Oh my God.
Ragavan, Nimble Pilfer, Rakdos Cackler.
Cactos Rackler.
This is basically just a 1-mana 2/2.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
And once again, if it gets that counter on it, it can't block.
Oh no! What are you gonna do?
One of my favorite cards from Neon Dynasty was Reinforced Ronin.
Oh yeah.
The 2-mana 1/1, or sorry, the 1-mana 2/2 with haste that comes back to your hand every turn, but also you can channel it or cycle it basically for 2
Yeah.
mana.
It doesn't have the keyword, but it is cycling.
Yeah, cards real good early in the game, and then later in the game when it's maybe not so impactful anymore, you can just cash it in for a fresh card off of the top.
It's also notably a creature and an artifact. So if you need to get your Delirium online, it's 2 of those card types at instant speed, which I think is really cool. Like when cards have multiple card types and you have Fate like Unholy Heat in the deck.
Yeah, it's multiple card types, and also it puts itself in the graveyard by virtue of its own ability. Like it's very
so
good for finding Delirium, that's for sure.
Like you're naturally gonna get your instants and sorceries in. Lands are probably gonna go in. Why not just complete it, right?
Shivan Devastator, the Fireball on a Stick. Love that card. Sky Shroud Elite is a card I have not seen in a long time. It's a 1-mana 1/1.
What if your opponent only has basics though, Joe?
+1/+2.
That did unfortunately come up.
Are you serious?
Yes,
Not a single non-basic land.
His first 2 lands in the game that I had it in the opener were basics, and then I played it, and he fetched around it the rest of the game. It was very sad.
Wow.
And never had a problem casting any of his spells.
It's true. But most of the time, it's very good.
Yeah.
Zergo Bell Striker. Ardo's Cobbler of War. This is a deck that, this is a card that we talked about with Sean. It's a 2-mana 1/1 with haste, and whenever another creature enters, it gets +2/+0.
Yeah, card is busted. Not much more to say. Just every time you slam a creature on the table,
yeah,
it gets
and like
bigger.
a lot of your creatures have haste too. So that +2/+0 that you're giving those creatures is immediately relevant.
It's a great card. Immediately.
It's also a great power. Like it's a mana sink. If you happen to flood out with this card, I guess I'll just invest it in this mana into making tokens.
Oh yeah, it's a 4 mana make a 1/1 with haste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just flavor text.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh, this next card is one of my favorites.
Yeah, Ash Zealot. So whenever a player casts a spell from a graveyard, Ash Zealot deals 3 damage to that player.
Hey, players don't play out of their graveyard, right?
All of the time.
You guys heard of Breach?
Have you ever had this card and your Storm opponent just couldn't win when it was in play, or something like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, even more so than just graveyard shenanigans. The first strike on it is just super relevant.
Yeah.
Just makes it so hard to block.
God, first strike and haste.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Block it, idiot?
Bloodthirsty Adversary. This is a card. Let's see. I got to read this card again. It's a 2-mana 2/2.
So many words.
Whenever it enters, you can pay 3 as many times as you want. It gets that many +1/+1 counters, and then you exile that many instants or sorcerers with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard and copy them? Okay, so have you ever done anything insane with this?
The biggest thing would be I've copied a Price of Progress after Price of Progress thing earlier in the game.
Oh wow, that's gross.
I've also Chain Lightning or Lightning Bolt effects.
Get him a body bag.
Just more damage. Yep. It's just like a good burn card.
The floor is just so good anyway. Like 2 mana, 2/2 haste.
Yep. I'm
Why
happy
not?
to play it turn 2.
I think all of the adversaries are really well designed.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Brushfire Elemental.
Ooh, yeah.
Like creatures with power 2 or less. Burning Tree Emissary, going to help you go wide. Dreadhorde Butcher, that's a card I was really fond of in that limited environment with other cards like Widespread Brutality, etc. Yep. Again, a hasty creature. When it deals combat damage, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and then when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power.
Yeah, it's sort of like a great target for Berserk.
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
Yeah. Yep. You're not running Berserk, right, Joe?
Who can say? I guess we'll find out in like 5 minutes here.
Earthshaker Kenra.
Very good card.
Oh, the Eternalized guy that makes it so
yeah.
a creature can't block.
Yep.
Fan favorite Gallia of the Endless Dance.
She's pretty good.
This card is very, very good. Going back to creating that virtual card advantage, this card is very, very good at doing that. It has whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, you can discard a card and draw 2 cards.
It's a card at random, but I don't think you really mind. Like,
do you mind?
Usually no. Usually at that point, you're discarding the land that you're flooding with to draw 2 new cards.
Yeah, why not?
I can't believe that I'm looking at a Hellspark Elemental right now.
Ooh, yeah. Why not?
The Hellspark Elemental. So it's like the miniature Ball Lightning or whatever. It's a 2-mana 3/1 with trample and haste, and you have to sacrifice it at the end of the turn. But this one comes with built-in recursion. It has Unearth.
Just immediately, why not? Why not two lightning bolts?
6 damage off 1 card is pretty decent.
Yeah.
My favorite card from last year, NT Cynical of the Sun. I don't know how much time we've spent talking about this card. I know that there have been several other decks that had this card in there. But man, I cannot say enough about how good this card is. It is absurd.
We were talking about how good any kind of evasion is with a lot of these creatures, and NT just incidentally giving your creatures evasion and getting you incidental card advantage. It's so good.
I mean, not to mention that with all the hasters in this deck, just throwing a counter and trample on them while you're already swinging in, it's just already good alone with that.
Yeah, this card pays you to play the game that you were gonna play anyway.
Yes.
It's so low. If they spend removal on it, again, like all of your creatures, if they're playing removal and spending removal on your creatures, generally you're either at parity or coming away at advantage with mana spent. Like they're spending probably 2, maybe 3 mana on killing one of your creatures. Like obviously against mono white, that's sort of its own incident. But like most of the time, Doomblade is its thing. That's sort of the metric that I judge these on. You're probably just at parity. They spent a card from hand, and you have so many of these bullets in the chamber.
Yeah. Crocs, Titan of Death's Hunger. Moloch, again, card is absurd. Mosswood Dread Knight. This is another one of these cards that I don't know if I've ever seen any other deck cast this card before. So it's a 2-mana 3/2. So you're already getting a bigger body than what you paid for.
What's the downside?
It doesn't have one. It's all upside. When it dies, you can cast it from your graveyard as an adventure until your next turn. And the adventure card is 2 mana, draw a card, lose a life.
So it's
when it
unkillable.
dies, it immediately replaces itself, and then you can cast the card again. So this is just like recall the creature.
Yep, it's a creature that won't die. That's already a big power trampler, which is already what we want in this deck. So it just kind of checks all the boxes.
And again, a card bad to spend removal on. They should not be spending removal on this card.
Exactly. And it's one I'm super happy to get late in the game because I'm like, all right, if I'm floating or I'm out of things to do, I'm just going to keep playing this
Right,
card over and over again.
just do this over and over and over again.
Yep.
A Rakdos Headliner, 2 mana 3/3 with haste. Echo, discard a card. So there's a little bit of synergy going on here that I'm seeing. So
I've noticed that.
With things like NT Cynical of the Sun, paying this card's Echo costs is now neutral because this will trigger NT.
Correct. And then you always want to pay the Echo on this card. You are slamming this turn 2 to hit them for 3. You do not care about losing a card because whatever you discard is probably a worse creature than this one anyway.
There's some creatures where it's like it's either on the fence on whether you pay the Echo, and some where you never. Like the Mog that gets you a creature when it dies, you just generally don't pay the Echo on that.
Yeah.
Avalanche Rider is sort of a 50-50. This is like you're always, yeah, that's fine. It's no mana, it's not costing you anything. And if you kill your opponent with when you're hellbent, like you're killing them no matter
Right,
what.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, if I always heard the example of like if you kill your opponent when they have 5 cards in hand, you mind twisted them. You got to mind twist them. Yeah,
one of my favorite things is winning the game when my opponent has a bunch of cards in their hand. It just
never give them a shot.
It just feels real good. Moving along, we've got a robber of the rich to steal things from those who have more than you. Tenacious Underdog, a guy that just keeps coming back. Also, Blitz lets you draw a card.
Yep. Yeah. And give it haste.
And gives it haste. Yep. So more virtual card advantage here. Yavimaya Iconoclast, an on-cop crasher to make combat weird. Bone Crusher Giant to make sure that you can kill those true name nemesis and get through protection from the One Ring. Bodside Bombardiers.
Don't play this card.
This card is insane.
So bad.
It's so stupid. Again, it's such a dumb card.
Again, we've spent quite a bit of time talking.
They messed up.
Other people. The next card, I don't know what it is. I have not looked at it yet. I'm looking at the mana cost and the name of it, and I have literally never seen this card before. So this is going to be a surprise for everybody. It's Crew Captain. This is a 3 mana 4/2 with haste. All right. Crew Captain has indestructible as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. So the turn that it gets to attack, the turn that you played it, is indestructible.
Yeah, and I'll tell you my feelings on this card. If you look at the deck image for this deck list, you'll see that is this card. This is the whole reason to build this deck as Jund. This card just gets in, does not care. Berserking this card is absurd. Flinging this card absurd. It is stupid.
Yeah, that seems pretty good, man.
Yeah.
I'm not good at Magic, but I feel like that seems like an obvious one.
Oh man, berserking this card. Oh man. Oh boy. We are getting down to the bottom of the creatures here. We've got a Gruul Spellbreaker.
I love this card.
A 3 mana 3/3 with Riot, Trample, and as long as it's your turn, you and Gruul Spellbreaker have hexproof. So your opponents that think they're going to edict your Crew Captain, they cannot.
This was big game in Standard against Settle the Wreckage.
Sure.
Because they can't settle you.
Yep.
But who plays Settle the Wreckage in this format?
I've gotten got by it not once, but twice.
Recently.
Yeah, so people play that card.
Yeah. Card's just very good. Like it's undercosted for whatever it does. Like either 3/3 with haste and trample, right?
Yeah.
Why?
3/3 with trample and haste, or a 4/4 with trample.
Yeah, that also has that static ability.
Yeah,
sure. Just give it everything.
Did you say because Gruul?
Because Gruul, that's why.
Because Gruul, yeah.
Gruul smash. Indoraptor, the perfect pet. This is Cody's favorite card, right?
Yeah.
Joe, tell me about Indoraptor.
So
lay it on me.
This is one of the only creatures in the deck that you want to like hold on to as long as possible because you want to, when you have this card in hand, throw everything at your opponent, do as much damage as possible, and then slam this card. And they're staring at like a 3 mana, like 6/4 7/5 with menace, and then has extra text if it gets damaged. It it can be pretty gross.
Yeah, this card is
Yeah.
absolutely insane.
Generally,
And
don't want to cast bolt on this, right? They don't want to. They don't want to bolt
Uh,
your Indoraptor.
if you're gonna bolt, you better have a non-token creature to sacrifice. That's all I'm saying.
so many bangers in this set. We've got a Lelia the Blade Reforged. One of Stefan's favorite cards, Lightning
Oh, yeah.
Skelemental. This card is it's quite crazy. So it is that ball lightning thing, right? It's a 3 mana 6/1
3 mana,
with
yeah.
trample and haste. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they discard 2 cards.
Yes.
So it is like a Blightning plus a lightning bolt.
Yes. Sean found out what this card did on Friday
Perfect.
on turn 2 because of a mox.
Oh,
Right.
Um, also found out about Unearth with this card.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. There's a lot of cards that are real good on Earth.
Unearth the lightning skelemental.
Modern Horizons, man.
Oh man. Rampaging Ferocidad, a card that was once banned in Standard. Reckless Storm Seeker, as if you didn't have enough haste. Bloodbraid Elf.
Again, haste.
This next card, banger. It is Hazaret, the Fervent.
Oh yeah.
I love me a Hazaret.
Jody, do you have your Hazaret? Can you show us the art that you did on that?
It's not next to me.
Okay.
I have to go get it some other time. Yeah.
Joe
Sorry.
didn't take it out of his other deck, and he drew a copy.
Yes, I
Oh,
did.
it's a proxied Hazaret?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, the other one's in my cube, and I was
It's
too busy
very
to get it
cool
out.
thing.
So a 4 mana 5/4 with indestructible and haste. It can't block or attack unless you have 1 or fewer cards in hand. That's not going to be a problem for you, is it though, Joe? When you get to turn 4 and you can cast.
No, you are more than happy to be empty-handed by the time you're playing this card.
And you can also just like pitch cards in your hand to paint, like to shock stuff. Like
yeah. So three mana, discard a card. It deals 2 damage to an opponent. So that ability right there will enable it being able to attack.
seems good with Inti.
Very
Oh,
good.
right. More subtle
Yeah.
synergy. I like it. Just a couple more creatures here. We've got a Headliner Scarlet. I have now cast this card twice, and I am here to tell you this card's gross. I also ephemerated it yesterday. That was fun.
Do people survive long after casting this against
Nope.
them?
I think I've won the turn or the turn after I've played it every
Sorry.
time I've played
The
it.
goal is you cast this card and win. That is the goal. You don't care about the third ability. You don't. You're trying to win.
It's a 3/3 with haste, and don't worry about the last ability. But it just comes down.
What if I told you that third ability mattered because the Ephemerate was the card I exiled from the top?
Oh,
I got a huge eye roll when I.
luck sack.
I'd imagine so.
It was a huge eye roll. I thought their eyes were gonna pop out of their head.
Oh my god.
Scarlet Sweet. Last creature in the deck is Questy Boy.
Seems all right.
For obvious reasons, yeah.
Yeah.
It has haste.
Yep.
I
And
mean, the
a
card's
million other
busted.
words.
Yeah.
Is very good. On to the not creatures. Starting with sorceries, we've got a Chain Lightning, a Fear Fire Foes.
Ooh, yeah.
When this card came out, I was playing the Jeskai Slushy deck and immediately slammed this in here. It gets around the protection that the One Ring gives you. It kills True Name Nemesis if your opponents have Mother of Runes or Giver of Runes or Skrelv or things like that. This stops those dead in their tracks. Joe, how do you feel about Fear Fire Foes?
There's a reason it's in the deck. It's because the main thing I was losing to was pesky protection creatures, and this just says, "Get out of here! I want to kill you."
Yeah, 100%.
It's also funny. Like if somebody plays, there's a player locally who does play. What is it? Constant Mists. Schaefer was on Constant Mist last night.
Oh, in the
on Friday.
lands deck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so this just goes, okay, well, you constant mists. That's fine. I will continue to kill you.
Wow, there was a bunch of Jund decks there on Friday, huh? Like
That's
4?
all I played against.
Holy cow.
Yeah, me,
A
Jay, Schaefer, and Joe.
a copy of Reanimate, a copy of Unearth for your Lightning Skelemental, and then a copy of Breakout. This is a new Murders of Karlov Manor card. It's a 2-mana sorcery. Look at the top 6 cards. You can reveal a creature from among them. If it has mana value 2 or less, you can put it onto the battlefield and gains haste. If you didn't put it into your hand, you put it, or sorry, if you didn't put it on the battlefield, you put it into your hand and then put the rest on the bottom. Joe, tell me about
Yes,
Breakout.
so this is one of those cards where I did not pay much attention to it during spoiler season, and then I started playing a Gruul aggro deck in standard for various RCQs. And what I figured out with this card is, with as many creatures are in this deck, you have a 92 or so percent chance to hit every time you play this card, just for 2 mana creatures alone. I'm not even talking about missing completely. Um, there has been one time where I cast it, and instead of getting a 2-drop out for haste, I decided to take the 4 mana Hazoret and just play it the next turn because I'm like, all right, I'll just kill you with this. But more often than not, I'm more than happy to play this on turn 2 if I'm like kind of stretched thin on what I want to play.
Seems like good for like Moloch, anything with like an ETB. Like
Yeah.
you're going to get a lot of value off of it. Like naturally, I think a lot of your cards do have like really good ETB value or like haste value,
Yep.
and you're not going to hurt taking any threat from 2 down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that card selection off of the top is really really good too.
Yeah.
Um,
It just finds you creature number 48. You know.
yeah,
That's all it is.
yeah, and I mean, like I like the collected company ish aspect of it too. It reminds me a lot of that card.
It's so much cheaper. 2
Oh yeah.
mana. It's half the mana.
Moving on to the instance, we've got a Berserk, of course,
Unbelievable.
a Fatal Push, a Lightning Bolt, an Unholy Heat, an Abrupt Decay, a Price of Progress, Shieldred's Edict, and a Dismember.
I really like the Dismember. Dismember, especially if they get something like Shieldred in play where they have an inevitability.
Which member?
That one? That? Like it just deals with a lot of stuff that your deck has trouble dealing with. Shieldred is the big one. Like if they land a Shieldred, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to clear out of the way. And I think your deck does a really good job of just like knowing, or that is to say, you as a player know when to unload your removal. Like
mean,
you're not just gonna throw bolts at stuff.
and I'll also point out about the Death Shadow line. It's yet another card that helps you
Yeah.
go down that far. Because
Yep,
again,
yep.
you don't care what your life total is in this deck. You're just trying to kill them.
Get their blocker out of the way and pump your Death Shadow.
Yeah.
What's
Totally
the
legit.
downside?
We've got the 3 Moxen in here, of course, a Skull Clamp, fan favorite Ember Cleave.
Ooh, that's the one. Love that card so much.
They never see the Ember Cleave coming.
Never.
Have you
Nope.
ever had Berserk on an equipment? Oh, okay.
Why does like it just has all of the good stuff that you want? Like it's generally just 2 mana, 2 red.
Yep.
And it immediately gets double strike and trample.
And
So it's it reminds me a lot of Teamer Battle Rage.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just a couple of enchantments. They got a Kumano Faces Kakazan and a Rancor. Let's see if Joe has.
You found the one enchantment with haste.
See if Joe has anything going on interesting in the way of lands. So generally, I would think that with the nature of this deck, your lands are mostly just making mana. That being said, we have a lot of options these days to kind of built in a buffer of sorts to prevent you from flooding. So, like a lot of the times, again, in decks like this, those lands can be kind of a liability. If you hit a pocket of them, or if you just get flooded or whatever, you're like, I can't do anything with my land. So you've got a Beseiju. You've got
The Surveil lands?
you've got a Mount Doom. I think that's super interesting. You just deal your opponent 1 damage.
Yep. I've killed people with that land.
Yeah,
It is
every turn.
perfectly legit.
You've got last one looks like a Soken Sun.
Yes. So the main thing about this deck, it's a 31 land deck, which is pretty
That's
on the
pretty
low
light.
side.
Yeah.
You are perfectly happy with most 1 or 2 land hands because, like I showed Stefan on
Yeah.
F&M Friday, I showed him a hand I kept that was 1 land, I believe five or
Yeah.
six 1 drops, and then
1 drops.
a 2 drop that I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll cast it.
It was a mold of 6, I think, and you
Yeah.
were still just like 1 land, 5 threats. We're good to go.
Yeah.
Let's ride this.
Yep.
And I think you didn't draw land for like 2 turns after that, and it was still like you
Yep.
were just unloading threats.
If we
Still doing
weren't
fine.
drawing lands, you know what we were drawing?
Good cards.
I guess there's a wasteland in there too, to give you a little bit more added utility in those lands. Okay, Joe, anything else you want to point out about your deck here before we bring it back up top?
I would say the obvious combo lines you guys were talking about with Inti discard effects. There are various ones of those that already existed in the deck before I even added Inti, as that was a newer card. So just bonus we get there. Obviously, Hazaret and Crew Captain with Berserk is nuts. I've never I think the fastest kill I've had was cheesing out Hazaret early with Moxon and then berserking it for the win. Um, and the
Hey, dude,
price
that's gross.
Yes. Price of Progress obviously continues to be a stupid
Just win games.
card.
Yeah.
How many basics are you playing?
Exactly 3.
Oh, okay.
One of
So
each.
this is a situation where it's going to kill them before it kills you.
Yes, I have other fun things I've done with this deck is if I'm losing, I'm not afraid to Price of Progress to draw the game and just start over.
Sure.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
I don't hate that line. You could also just like make your Death Shadow bigger.
Yeah.
Like that's totally reasonable.
There have been several times where it's like I'm taking 6, but you're taking 10. This game's over.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
several
Yeah.
times.
It's not even that
if your general plan is to only have 3 or 4 lands and play for
Yeah.
most of the game, and you can fetch in a way so that you have 1 or 2 basics in play, the most that Price of Progress is going to deal you at 4, and like you don't really have a reason to play those extra non-basic lands. You could just keep them in your hand, right?
Exactly. And I'll also say Blood Moon does not really hurt this deck as much as you would think. There's
A lot
so
of
many
red
red cards.
cards.
Yeah,
So many
you're,
red
you're
cards.
super red dominant. That's another thing. Before I bring this back up top, let's take a look at your curve real quick because it is quite low. You've got 3 at
Yep.
0, a whopping 19 plus 8, so 27 at 1, and your curve just goes straight down from there. A lot of the times with Canadian Highlander decks, you see like something in the 20 range in the ones, and then we go up closer to 30 in the 2 drops, and then it scales down from there. You just like 1 drop and then 1 drop 1 drop. Some of those
Yep.
some of those hands, those can be the most potent ones, right? Because like it's turn 2, you've already got 3 threats in play. Maybe they all have haste. Classic creature heavy burn draw, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, even if you just ignore the busted Moxton hands too, obviously,
Oh sure.
just going like 1 drop haster into 2 drop strong haster is good enough most of the time, or double 1 drop haste. So you have 3 threats, and then if they play something that can block all your little things, if you have one of your removal spells, get it out of the way. Usually they're already in single digits by that time, and it's like, all right, I don't care if you're gonna block and kill my guys anymore because you're gonna die to all my other stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you are over 2/3 of the deck is red. You're at 67% red, and then about
Yep.
30% each for the other ones. So I am going to bring this back up top.
Black definitely feels like the splash color in the deck, but it seems also super valuable.
It is. It used to be more prevalent. I used to have a lot more of the 1 mana 2/1s that like entered tapped and could recur
Mhm.
themselves. But I found over time that like I think it's just better to have these other haste threats that enter untapped and can just swing at you because like while Skull Clamp is very good with Bloodsoak Champion and those other creatures that
Yeah.
recur,
Gutter
uh,
bones.
yeah, it's just better to just hit them.
Yeah. Why spend time on it?
Yeah, because if you're taking your turns off to play these tapped creatures, you're not hurting them. So
Yeah. I don't know. I really like the deck. I think it's super interesting. It's super unique. I don't think anybody else is touching sort of the level where you are right now in it. And you've put a lot of time into making it good.
I'll say I played it quite a bit last year. Like I said, yeah, I top forward that one tournament with it. Unfortunately, 04, the next one I played in, um, you could argue it's a side of variance kind of thing. You could
Well,
argue
Magic
just
that's
rules
how
it.
kind of something that I wanted to talk to you about here.
yeah.
Now that we are back up in the face view, hang on just a second. So, um, like I think it's probably very, very matchup dependent.
Mhm.
Before we got started, I was trying to go back through and look at some of your matchups from each and compare, uh, thinking that maybe our metagame for that tournament that you top forward in was, skewed a specific way, and then for the other one, it wasn't. I can tell you for sure that the tournament where this deck did not perform well, the top three most played cards were White Plume Adventurer, Seasoned Dungeoneer, and Swords to Plowshares. There was 30 copies of each of those
Oh my
cards
god.
between the 33 decks, 34 decks in the tournament. There was only 4 people that were not playing those cards.
Yeah.
So,
The
Oh yeah.
initiative is like
tell
very
me,
good.
Joe, tell me a little bit about, um, what are some of this deck's good and or bad matchups?
So the good matchups I would say would be those decks that are trying to one for one remove with you, because you easily just swarm the board if they want to take their time to pick off like one thing at a time. They're usually dying anyway. Um, I'd say initiative isn't even that bad of a matchup either because like yeah they could play one creature to take the initiative, but then you're never not gonna like take it back from them. You're just
Right,
gonna fight over it,
right.
and well, they might hit you for 3, but you're hitting them for 6 plus. So
You don't
whatever,
mind the
you're winning.
battle.
Yeah, you're winning the race. You're winning the
Yeah.
race. I think the bad matchups I've had in my experience, the Flash Hulk deck wrecked me when I
Oh
played
yeah.
against it. They
Sure.
just combo before I can kill them, which
Sure.
is crazy with how fast this deck can perform. But that was before Flash went up in points or whatever card went up in points to
Yeah, it
nerf
was
that deck.
Flash.
Um, uh, Secret Walk's kind of close. It's just a race on if you combo before they do or not,
All right. So
or
Like I
you
said,
kill them
worst.
before they
the
combo.
theme that I'm sensing here is that maybe the deck is not so great against combo decks, which is usually true of aggro decks in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So other than the combo decks of the format, is there anything that strikes you as like you're not very well positioned against it?
Uh, I don't think so. I think Travis's mono white gave me a good run for my money. I don't
Like that
think.
deck tends to.
Yeah, I don't think I've beat him yet with this Jund Blitz list. I also haven't played against him with this deck in over a year now.
Yeah,
So the
that
updates
makes
could have.
sense. Those spells that make damage not being able to prevent it. I would
Yeah, just
imagine if you draw those that make some
yeah.
little bit of difference at least.
Mother of Runes, Giver of Runes, Pro Red stuff. Like, yeah, just naturally pretty good against the deck.
Sure. Okay. Anything else that you want to say about Jund Blitz before we finish up here?
I'll say it's been a fun deck to play. The 04 I had, like I said, it could be part of the variance of the matchup spread. So
Oh
it,
yeah.
I put myself off of it after that for a while, but a lot of new fun tools for the deck have come out since then in the
Sure.
last year plus. So I
Yeah,
had fun with it
give you a little
at
bit of
Friday.
invigoration for it. Maybe
Yeah,
try it out
yeah,
again.
I had fun
Yeah.
with it after talking to you guys about it on Friday. So I'll probably just keep it in my rotation for like F&M and stuff.
Heck yeah.
Um, yeah, I encourage other people to try it if they want an aggro deck that is not mono red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and you're not necessarily about like mid-range Gruul threats like in Gruul monsters.
Sure.
Yeah.
You,
It's
you
it's
you
much
get to
faster.
play like Blake was saying earlier. You get to play with a lot of cards that are unique to just this deck.
That okay. So I was just reminded of something I wanted to ask you. What is mulliganing like? Do you feel like you mulligan a lot? You feel like you
Uh,
mulligan very little, or do you feel like you mulligan like an average amount?
I would
Same as other
say
decks.
I think mulling to 6 might be more often than other decks because finding a hand that is not like 4 lands, like 4 lands is totally playable, but by the time uh you're on turn 4 and you're like slowly playing your threats, like you've missed your window of opportunity, I feel like at that point.
Right.
And if you
Unless you
draw another land, you're basically
Yeah,
out.
yeah. So mulling when I see 4 lands, like
Okay.
3 lands, questionable. Usually keep on the play. 4 lands, no. I mulligan that. 1 land is totally keepable in this deck unless you're like most of your 2 drops are in your hand. But that'd be what I would say for not only mulligan advice, but usually how mulligans go with this deck.
Right on. All right, Joe. We appreciate you coming on the podcast today to talk about Jund Blitz. Once again,
Oh, yeah.
audience, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn notifications on so that we get to annoy you every time we upload a video. There is a link to our Patreon campaign down in the description of this video. You can go there and check out all of the extra Canadian Highlander content that is not available on YouTube there. And with that out of the way, we just want to remind you that we're proud of you.
We're proud of you.
Bye.
Get in the comments. Tell Joe how much you love Lutri.